My name is Gerald. I'm 88 years old, and 6 months ago, I found out my wife had another family, another husband, another house, another life. For 50 years, her name was Linda. We were married for 52 years. She died last year, November 14th, 2023. She was 86 years old, and I thought I knew everything about her. But 3 days after the funeral, a man showed up at my door. He said his name was Robert, and he said, "I'm sorry for your loss. Linda was my wife too." This is about the 50 years I lived with a woman I didn't know, and what I found out after she was gone. I met Linda in 1969. I was 33 years old. She was 31. We met at a church picnic in Ohio. She was sitting alone under a tree, reading a book. I asked if I could sit down. She said yes. We talked for 3 hours. Linda was quiet, thoughtful. She didn't talk much about her past. Said her family was complicated, that she'd moved around a lot. I didn't push. I figured she'd tell me when she was ready. We dated for 2 years, got married in 1971. Small wedding, just a few friends. Linda said she didn't have family to invite. Her parents were dead. She said, no siblings, no relatives she was close to. I believed her. We moved to Pennsylvania after the wedding. I got a job at a factory. Linda worked part-time at a library. We had a good life. Not fancy, but good. Linda was a wonderful wife. She cooked. She kept the house clean. She was loving, attentive. But there was always something distant about her. Like she was only partially there. I'd ask her what she was thinking, and she'd say, nothing. Just tired. I thought that was just who she was, quiet, private, but now I understand. She was living 2 lives, and she couldn't talk about half of one without revealing the other. In 1973, Linda started taking trips. She'd say she needed to visit a sick friend or help someone move. At first, it was once or twice a year. A weekend here, a week there. But by the 1980s, she was gone 1 week every month. I asked her about it. She said her friend was going through a divorce. Needed support. I said, Linda, you're gone a lot. Is everything okay? She said, I'm helping people, Gerald. That's what we're supposed to do, and I felt guilty for asking. By the 1990s, Linda was gone 10 days every month. She'd pack a bag, kiss me goodbye, say, I'll be back Thursday. And she always came back exactly when she said she would. Never late, never early, always precise. I thought she was just organized. Now I know. She had 2 schedules to keep. In 2005, Linda retired from the library. I thought, finally, we'll have more time together. But she didn't stop traveling. She said she'd joined a volunteer organization, helping elderly people in another city. I said, why don't you volunteer here? We have elderly people here. She said, they need me there, Gerald. I made a commitment, and I didn't argue, because Linda was a good person. If she said people needed her, I believed her. For 50 years, I believed her. In 2015, Linda had a health scare. Heart problems. The doctor said she needed to slow down. Stop traveling so much. Linda cried. She said, I can't. They need me. I said, Linda, you're going to kill yourself. You need to rest. She said, you don't understand, Gerald. I have obligations. And she kept going, even when her heart was weak, even when she could barely walk without getting tired. She kept making those trips, 1 week every month, for 50 years. Linda died in November 2023. Heart attack, sudden. She was sitting in her chair, reading, and she just stopped. I found her when I came home from the store. The funeral was small, just a few people from church. I thought it would just be me and a handful of others. But on the 3rd day after the funeral, a man knocked on my door. He was around my age, maybe 85, grey hair, kind face. He said, "Are you Gerald?" I said, "Yes." He said, "My name is Robert. I'm sorry for your loss." I said, "Did you know Linda?" He said, "Yes. Linda was my wife." I thought I'd misheard him. I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He said, "Linda was my wife for 50 years, and then he started crying. I stood there, in my doorway, looking at this man crying about my wife. And I didn't understand." Robert said, "I'm sorry, I know this is, I don't know how to say this, but Linda had 2 families, you and me, for 50 years. I said, "That's not possible." He said, "She lived with me 1 week every month, in Pittsburgh. We've been married since 1972. I said, "You're lying." He said, "I'm not, I can prove it." And he showed me pictures. Linda and Robert, wedding photo. 1972, Linda and Robert, at a house I'd never seen. Linda and Robert, at Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, 50 years of photos, of a life I didn't know existed. Robert said, "She told me she had to take care of her sick mother. 1 week every month. For 50 years, I thought she was taking care of her mother." I said, "Her mother was dead. She died before I met her." Robert said, "I know that now. After Linda died, I found documents. She had 2 lives, 2 houses, 2 marriages. I couldn't breathe." Robert said, "I found your address in her papers. I needed to meet you, to see if you knew, if you were part of it." I said, "I didn't know." He said, "Neither did I." We stood there, 2 men, both married to the same woman for 50 years. Both of us thinking we knew her. Neither of us knowing anything. Robert said, "Did she ever talk about Pittsburgh?" I said, "No. She said she was visiting a sick friend." Robert said, "Did she ever seem like she was hiding something?" I said, "She was private. But I thought that was just who she was." Robert said, "Me too." We sat down, in my living room, and we started comparing. The dates Linda was with me. The dates Linda was with Robert. It matched perfectly. 1 week with me. 1 week with him. 1 week with me. 1 week with him. For 50 years. Like clockwork. Robert said, "Did you ever suspect?" I said, "No." "Did you?" He said, "No. She was perfect. As a wife, she was perfect." And that's when I understood. Linda wasn't just living 2 lives. She was being 2 different women. And both of us thought we had all of her. But neither of us did. This is the end of part 1. In part 2, I'll tell you what else Robert and I found, and what I finally understand about the woman I was married to for 52 years.